My name is Brittany Aubert, but most people probably know me as Aubrey Edwards, referee for All Elite Wrestling. I grew up in Northern California. I was a classical ballet dancer since I was 9 years old, studied for about 22 years, and ever since I was little, I wanted to make video games. So I moved up to Seattle, went to a school called Digipen Institute of Technology, got my 4-year bachelor's in computer science, made video games for 10 years. My biggest claim to fame is I was a project lead on Scribblenauts, which was on Nintendo DS. We were a Wii launch title, 3DS, Steam, and PC. There was an iPhone port at one point. I worked on that game for about 6.5 years, various different iterations of it. And then I've worked on next-gen console games, I've worked on MMOs, I've worked on virtual reality, I've worked on free-to-play slot machine games. I've worked on pretty much everything. Most people end up watching wrestling as a kid, and that's not something I did. My dad said it was stupid and that it's fake and you shouldn't watch it. He was a closet Goldberg fan, little did I know. But I first watched wrestling WrestleMania 27. A couple friends of mine had a party. It was treated like a Super Bowl party. Everyone comes over with a dish or whatever. You're doing prop bets, and I literally have no idea what's going on. I'm like, this is okay, I guess. And that was the moment that got my husband back into it. And he was a fan when he was younger, so he started watching it. And one day I come home from work, and he says, "Hey, you got to watch this thing that happened." And it was June, about 10 years ago, where CM Punk does his famous pipe bomb promo. And from that moment, I was hooked. And I watched all of the television wrestling religiously. I started going to indie shows. I went full-on fandom in. And I think part of that is because I had been a ballet dancer for so long, I immediately saw the performance aspect of it. That you have this person who's a personal individual putting themselves into a character. And that really spoke to me, because wrestling is really the only form of entertainment that has the relationship with the audience it does. Normally you watch a movie and that's it, you're just consuming media. But wrestling being what it is, the crowd is interacting, the crowd is booing the bad guys and cheering the good guys, and performers have the opportunity to respond to that, and that doesn't happen anywhere else. So it was absolutely fascinating, and I fell in love with it. Been working on games professionally for near 10 years. And I was looking at retiring from ballet. My body was destroyed for mental health reasons. I just needed to step away. And after leaving that, I got super depressed, because performing, turns out, was a very big form of how I coped with a lot of emotion. So I needed something new. And someone came to me and said, "Hey, we have this indie wrestling show that I was a fan of and I attended every week. We think you should be a referee." And I said, "Why would I want to do that? That sounds so silly. All they do is yell at people, whatever." So I tried it. I was terrible. I tried it again. I was a little bit better. And a month and a half later, I did my first show. 2 years later, I'm here. So a little bit of a whirlwind. I ended up in All Elite Wrestling, I think. It was a combination of timing, and it was a combination of being prepared for an opportunity. One of the benefits of indie shows is guys from all over will get booked, and you'll have people coming in from other promotions and whatnot. And I was working a show up in Canada called All-Star Wrestling, and Frankie Kazarian ended up being booked for the show. I ended up reffing his match, and I actually messed up the finish. But if you ask Frankie, he says that what we ended up doing was better, because in the moment I'm just like, "Nope, wave it off, let's just keep going." And the audio guy was pissed at me. He had no idea what was happening. But it's wrestling. Sometimes you have to go on the fly. And Frankie was apparently impressed enough with both my reffing ability and kind of who I was as a person that he gave my name to Brandy and the Bucks. We ended up working together again about a month later at another show up in Canada, ECCW. And it was that show where I gave him my email, a headshot, a couple matches. And I'm like, man, I hope this works out. A week later from that, I talked to Christopher Daniels, and they offered me Double or Nothing. A professional wrestling referee is a very unique role in that a lot of people think we're just someone who officiates and enforces rules, when in actuality we have what seems like 12 jobs in a given moment. Yes, we're enforcing rules, but the rules are there to service the story. And the story is what the wrestlers are telling. So ultimately, our number one job is helping the wrestlers tell a story. We're also in charge of helping the production of a television show. we're live on TV for 2 hours. We gotta be off the air at 9:59, and part of that is me communicating where we are in the show based on the times I'm getting from the back of my earpiece to the wrestlers so they can adjust accordingly and we can stick to the confines of what we're given to tell that story. I'm also the first line of defense if any injuries happen. We have to assess the situation. We see what happened up close. We talk to medical staff in the moment. There's so many different things that we do. Because I was a project manager for so long, I really like the punctuality of we have to be on the air at 8 and we have to be off the air then. And so for me, it's just a different format of instead of following the schedule on a spreadsheet, you're following the schedule based on what Tony tells you. Being a woman in this role is very interesting because we run into a lot of things that should be simple that aren't. Like, I could tell you the struggles of finding a pair of pants that fit, because they have to have belt loops, they have to have multiple functional pockets, they have to slide well, and I don't want to look like a box when I'm on TV. And the fact that I can't just go to Walmart and spend $10 on a pair of pants that I wear for the next 8 years is, to me, very obvious that, nope, this is still a very male-dominated role because we don't think about the fact that there are people that maybe wear something a little bit different. I had a shirt the other week that was a small size shirt, but in its default state, I looked like a trash bag. And I had to take it to our seamstress to shorten the sleeves and tighten them and taper it so that I actually look like a girl on TV. Go figure. So yeah, little things like that, like the fact that a referee has to sit in the makeup chair. That's another face for makeup to do. The fact that, you know, I paint my nails and I do all these things that are traditionally seen as feminine, but at the same time, I think I'm sort of seen as the one that doesn't take any bull from people, and I get in people's faces and I'm very aggressive. So it's that juxtaposition of the two. How do I be feminine but also a badass at the same time? Day of television, I wake up, I hit the gym. Big thing I'm working on is my cardio. I don't think a lot of people understand how in shape you have to be as a referee. Like, we've seen Hangman Adam Page and Bryan Danielson go an hour, but I don't think people realize that Paul Turner was in there for an hour as well. And that's a lot to ask of a referee because you're reacting constantly to everybody and every movement that's happening. So hitting the gym is super important. I'll end up hitting the venue pretty early. I get in the makeup chair first because there's a lot of girls that day and I know I'm on the show and I just want to get in and get out. And I do a lot of just trying to communicate to people backstage. I find I take a lot of the lessons I've learned from being a project manager in video games and applying that to wrestling. So as the card comes out, I'm helping communicate that to the various locker rooms and to the makeup team and to the truck and just making sure that everyone sort of knows what's happening, because things change very quickly in wrestling. And if something happens, you need someone else to know what that updated information is. Ultimately, we're all in it together and we're all one team. So I'm just trying to find out how I can best be a team player. As the wrestlers are figuring things out, we're meeting up with them, talking about finishes, talking about specific spots, different camera angles. We're working with the coaches to figure out what are the story elements we want to see. And we have to do that multiple times because we're reffing between 3 and 4 matches on a normal Wednesday. You're trying to figure out where you are in the format. Do you have a commercial break? Is your commercial break a picture-in-picture? Is it a full? Is it a hybrid? How do you communicate that to the wrestlers in the ring? Do you have 4 minutes ahead of time? Do you have 6 on the back end? All of these different things. So when you're in the match, that's the stuff you're thinking about. Like, how much time do we have? Where are we going? I need to remember what my spot is. I need to make sure that I'm out of the camera angle for this spot in particular. And it's just a lot of throwing a bunch of things at the wall and hoping it all sort of works out. And a single day, we're filming a 2-hour episode of live television, but I mean, it's a 12 to 13-hour day for us. So there's a video of me at Bryan Danielson's retirement a number of years ago where I'm in the front row at Key Arena in Seattle just bawling my eyes out. And some people think that's all staged, but like I paid a lot of money for those tickets. Like, I'm not gonna lie. I was not in wrestling, I didn't know anybody. I'm on StubHub just like everyone else. And that's one of those moments that was just so real because Bryan Danielson was legit my favorite wrestler and still is to this day. And you see someone's career shortened unexpectedly We literally found out that morning he was retiring on Twitter, so it was just like an emotional day. You know you're going to hear from him eventually, and I see the red light of the camera go on. I'm just like, okay, can't fight it now, oh my God. And I'm just trying to not be a complete, like, crying mess, but I just couldn't help it. So, I mean, little did we know he was going to come back to wrestling, but I don't think I ever expected to see him here. Or same with CM Punk. Like, the guy that got me into wrestling is now my coworker. Like, I text him about how, you know, poor his hockey team is, and then he sends the same thing right back. So the fact that I have hockey heat with the guy that got me into wrestling, and I get to ref matches with both him and the dude that is my favorite wrestler is, yeah, it's one of those, how it started, how's it going? And I don't think anyone saw it coming. It's a very interesting thing being a woman in this role, because at the same time, I don't want to be seen as a woman in this role, but I also know what it means to be in the prominent position I am. I think coming from another male-dominated industry like video games, it's something that's sort of been on my mind my entire adult life, that there's not a lot of women, and what we're doing is super important for representation's sake and giving other women opportunities. To me, I don't think about it, I'm just there yelling at dudes who play fight in their underwear. I'm not really thinking about, like, you know, what it means for me to be my gender in this role, but hearing the responses from parents, especially on Twitter, saying, like, my kids are watching you and saying, I want to be her when I grow up. And that's just really, really, like, I had no idea, right? I think the important thing to know is that it takes a lot of hard work. I know that I've had a lot of opportunities come my way because I'm a woman. I get noticed because I'm a woman, but I get those jobs because I'm talented. That something like being the first woman to ref a main event title match at a pay-per-view, we didn't do that so we could check the box. Like, both Jericho and Hangman asked me to do that match because they wanted me specifically to do it. And I think that's really the important thing, is having the talent and the qualifications to do the job. The fact that I'm a woman is just extra bonus. Regardless of what it is you're doing, whether it's a male-dominated field or not, that doing the best job that you possibly can is the absolute most important thing.